The church bells tolled like a death knell as Mark stood at the altar, his hands trembling beneath the crisp folds of his tuxedo. His father, Reverend Thomas Harlan, gripped the Bible tighter, his eyes narrowing at the sight of Mark's best man, Ethan, standing too close, their shoulders brushing in a way that screamed intimacy to anyone who dared look twice. In that split second, as the bride approached, Thomas's voice boomed across the congregation. "This wedding is a farce. My son is a sinner, entangled with that man." Mark's world shattered. The guests gasped, whispers erupting like wildfire through the pews. His fiancée, Sarah, froze mid-step, her veil fluttering in the sudden hush. Mark's mind raced. How did his father know? The secret glances, the stolen nights with Ethan, his college roommate turned lover, hidden for years under the guise of friendship. Now, exposed in the heart of Boston's oldest cathedral, where Thomas had preached fire and brimstone against unnatural affections for decades. Mark's chest tightened. He felt the weight of every sermon his father had ever delivered crushing him. Why now? Why here? The betrayal burned deeper than any flame. Ethan's face paled, his usual confident stance crumbling. He had begged Mark to come clean months ago, but Mark had insisted on the charade, marrying Sarah to appease his family, to secure his position as a rising star in the Boston Police Department. "We can't risk it," Mark had whispered in the dark, his voice laced with fear. "My dad's influence, the force, it's all homophobic as hell." But Ethan had stayed, loving Mark despite the lies, believing one day they'd break free. Now, as Thomas pointed an accusatory finger, Ethan wondered if his loyalty had been a fool's errand. The pain sliced through him. Was I just a shadow in his life? Sarah turned, her eyes wide with shock and hurt. She had suspected something, late nights, distant touches, but never this. "Mark?" she whispered, the bouquet slipping from her fingers. The congregation stirred, some averting eyes, others murmuring judgments. Mark's mother, Ellen, clutched her pearls, torn between her husband's righteousness and her son's pleading gaze. Inside, Ellen wrestled with her own secrets. She had seen the signs, ignored them to preserve the family facade. How could she stand by now? Mark stepped forward, his voice barely audible. "Dad, please, this isn't the time." But Thomas's face hardened, years of repressed anger boiling over. "You've shamed us all, boy. Get out. Both of you." The words echoed, sealing Mark's fate. As ushers moved to escort them, Mark's mind screamed. This is it. The end of everything I built. The promotion he was eyeing. The respect from his precinct. All evaporating in this holy inferno. Ethan's hand brushed his, a silent plea, but Mark pulled away instinctively, the habit of denial too ingrained. They fled the church, the doors slamming behind them like a final judgment. Rain began to fall, soaking their suits as they stumbled into the street. Ethan grabbed Mark's arm. "We have to talk about this." Mark shook him off, panic rising. "What do you want me to say? My life's over." Inside, Mark's thoughts churned. "I chose safety over love, and now I've lost both." The irony twisted like a knife. His father's outburst, meant to purge sin, had only amplified it. At home that night, Mark paced the apartment he shared with Sarah, now empty of her things. She had left a note. "I deserve the truth." Guilt gnawed at him. He had used her as a shield, convincing himself it was kindness. But was it? The moral quandary haunted him. Had he been protecting her or just himself? Ethan called repeatedly, but Mark ignored the phone, drowning in self-loathing. Why couldn't I be straight? Why did God make me this way only for Dad to condemn it? Thomas, meanwhile, sat in his study, the Bible open but unread. His outburst had been impulsive, fueled by an overheard conversation weeks ago. Now regret flickered. Had he destroyed his son to uphold his faith? The church elders would praise him, but at what cost? Ellen confronted him. "You humiliated him in front of everyone. Is that what Jesus would do?" Thomas snapped back. "The Bible is clear." Yet inwardly, doubt crept in. Was my righteousness worth my family's ruin? The next day, The news spread like venom through Boston's tight-knit communities. Mark's precinct buzzed with rumors. His captain pulled him aside. "Harlan, this true? We don't tolerate distractions." Mark nodded numbly, sensing the demotion looming. Ethan, a high school teacher, faced stares from colleagues, whispers about that gay thing at the wedding. His principal suggested a leave. For your safety. Safety from what? The bigotry Ethan had fought against his whole life. Mark finally met Ethan at a coffee shop, the air thick with tension. "I'm sorry," Mark muttered. Ethan leaned in, eyes fierce. "Sorry doesn't fix this. You let him win." Mark's inner turmoil peaked. Do I fight for us, or crawl back to normalcy? The decision loomed, heavy as the cross his father bore. As days blurred, Mark confronted his father at the parsonage. "Why, Dad? After all I've done to make you proud." Thomas's voice wavered. "I thought I could save you." But Mark saw the crack, his father's fear mirroring his own. The confrontation escalated, words flying like daggers. "You're no father," Mark spat, storming out. Inside, Thomas questioned, "Have I become the Pharisee I preach against?" Ethan, waiting outside, pulled Mark into an embrace. "We can start over." But Mark hesitated, the societal chains still binding him. The path ahead was fraught. Lawsuits whispered, careers teetering. Yet in that moment, a spark ignited. Maybe freedom was worth the fall. Mark stared at the ceiling of Ethan's cramped apartment, the weight of the past week pressing down like an invisible force. Sleep evaded him, his mind a whirlwind of what-ifs. What if he had never kissed Ethan that rainy night in college? What if he had confessed sooner? The questions looped endlessly, each one deepening the ache in his chest. Ethan lay beside him, breathing steadily, but Mark knew he was awake too, their unspoken fears hanging between them like a veil. The morning brought harsh reality. Mark's phone buzzed with messages from colleagues. Heard about the wedding. Tough break. But beneath the sympathy lurked judgment, the kind that eroded trust in the locker room. As a cop, Mark had always played the straight arrow role, beer with the guys, flirting with dispatchers to fit in. Now, exposed, he felt naked, vulnerable to the department's undercurrents of homophobia. His partner, Ramirez, had joked once about fairies on the force, and Mark had laughed along to blend in. Now, that laughter haunted him. Was I betraying myself every day? At work, the captain called Mark in. "Harlan, the brass is concerned. Public image matters." Mark's stomach twisted. "It's personal, sir." The captain leaned back. "Not when your dad's a public figure railing against gays." Mark left the meeting demoted to desk duty, his badge feeling heavier. Inside, rage simmered. Why should my love life cost my career? The moral dilemma gnawed, duty to the force versus authenticity. Sarah called that evening, her voice laced with pain. "I need closure, Mark." They met at a neutral park, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. "Why me?" she asked, tears welling. Mark confessed, "I thought I could change for you, for everyone." But as he spoke, he realized the lie's depth. He had used her to mask his truth, a selfish act disguised as sacrifice. Sarah's forgiveness came with a sting. "You hurt us both." Walking away, Mark pondered. Is redemption possible after such deception? Thomas, tormented by his actions, sought counsel from his fellow pastors. "Did I do right?" he asked. They nodded, quoting scripture, but Thomas's heart rebelled. Memories flooded. Mark as a boy, eager for approval, molding himself to Thomas's ideals. Had he pushed too hard? Ellen urged reconciliation. Call him, but pride held Thomas back, his inner conflict raging. Faith demands purity, but love demands mercy. Which prevails? Ethan faced his own battles at school. A parent complained, "I don't want my kid taught by someone like that." The administration investigated, citing community standards. Ethan fought back in a meeting. "My personal life doesn't affect my teaching." But doubt crept in. Was staying worth the scrutiny? He confided in Mark. "Maybe we should leave Boston." Mark recoiled. "And run? That's not me." The tension peaked at a family dinner Ellen arranged, hoping for peace. Thomas sat rigidly, Mark and Ethan opposite. "This is unnatural," Thomas began. Mark exploded. "Your love is conditional." Words escalated. Accusations flying. Thomas blaming Ethan for corrupting Mark. Ethan retorting about hypocritical piety. Mark's mind screamed, "Choose family or love." He stormed out with Ethan, but the rift deepened his isolation. Alone later, Mark wept, the emotional dam breaking. "Why must I pay this price?" Ethan's comfort helped, but Mark's resentment grew. Toward his father, society, even himself. A call from Ramirez surprised him. "Hey man, some of us got your back." A glimmer of hope, but fragile. Thomas, sleepless, reread the Bible, verses on love clashing with those on sin. A revelation stirred. Perhaps judgment wasn't his role. He drafted a letter to Mark, but tore it up, fear winning again. As weeks passed, Mark and Ethan grew closer, their bond tested and strengthened. But shadows loomed. A leaked video of the wedding outburst went viral, amplifying the scandal. Mark's precinct faced protests. Ethan's job hung by a thread. The stakes rose, forcing harder choices. In a quiet moment, Ethan whispered, "We're in this together." Mark nodded, but inwardly questioned. At what cost to him? The viral video hit like a tsunami, flooding Mark's life with unwanted attention. Reporters camped outside his apartment, shouting questions. "Officer Harlan, comment on your father's accusations?" Mark shoved through, his face a mask, but inside, fury boiled. How dare they turn his pain into spectacle? The department suspended him pending investigation, citing conduct unbecoming. Suspended for being gay? The injustice fueled his anger, morphing into a resolve he hadn't known existed. Ethan's school placed him on leave. For safety. Safety from bigoted parents, he thought bitterly. He paced their living room, venting, "This isn't just about us. It's systemic." Mark agreed, but his cop instincts kicked in, fight or fold. He chose fight, contacting a lawyer friend about discrimination claims. The process unearthed buried emotions. Shame from years of hiding, now weaponized against him. Thomas watched the news in horror. His church picketed by LGBTQ activists. Parishioners defected, whispering about his hate speech. Ellen confronted him. "See what you've done." Thomas's defenses cracked. He visited a therapist secretly, admitting, "I fear I've lost my son forever." The sessions dredged up his own past. A brother disowned for similar reasons, now estranged. Was history repeating? The moral weight crushed him. Preach damnation or embrace grace? Mark and Ethan attended a support group, hearing stories of rejection and resilience. One man shared losing his job, another his family. Mark spoke haltingly. "I thought I could have both worlds." The group nodded knowingly. Ethan squeezed his hand, but later argued, "You still hesitate with me in public." Mark snapped, "Give me time." The rift widened, Ethan's patience fraying. "Am I worth the full commitment?" A surprise visit from Sarah intensified the drama. "I'm pregnant," she announced, eyes defiant. Mark reeled. From their last intimate night, before the truth emerged. "What now?" he whispered. Fatherhood, a new layer of complexity. Keep it? Co-parent? The ethical maze twisted. Abandon the child? Or entangle with Sarah while loving Ethan? Thomas learned of the pregnancy through Ellen, who begged him to reach out. Grandchild on the way. Doesn't that change things? Thomas wavered, his dogma clashing with paternal instinct. He called Mark. "We need to talk." The meeting at a neutral diner was tense. "I'm sorry," Thomas offered gruffly. Mark scoffed. "For what?" "Ruining my life." Tears fell as Thomas confessed his fears. "I was raised to believe it's wrong." Mark's response cut deep. "And you raised me to hide." Ethan, excluded from the meeting, felt sidelined. "It's always about your family," he accused later. Mark defended. "This baby's mine too." Jealousy flared in Ethan. Was Mark regressing? Their argument escalated, doors slamming. Alone, Ethan questioned, "Do I stay for love or leave for self-respect?" The pregnancy news leaked, twisting the narrative. Now Mark was the deceptive gay dad. Protests grew. Mark's lawyer advised a public statement. He agonized. Come out fully or mitigate? Opting for honesty, he spoke at a press conference. "I'm gay and proud." The words liberated him, but backlash followed, threats, hate mail. Thomas, watching on TV, felt a shift. He preached a sermon on forgiveness, subtly alluding to his errors. Congregants murmured. Some left, others applauded. Internally, Thomas battled, evolve or cling to tradition. Sarah and Mark discussed options, agreeing on co-parenting. But Ethan's insecurity peaked. "Where do I fit?" Mark reassured. "With me." Yet doubt lingered. As high tide approached, Mark faced a departmental hearing. Testimonies varied, some supportive, others damning. Ramirez vouched. "He's a damn good cop." The verdict, reinstated, but watched. Victory tasted bittersweet. Ethan proposed, "Marry me, for real." Mark hesitated, the past echoing. But in that pause, emotions surged. Fear versus love. He said yes, sealing a pact amid chaos. Thomas, hearing of the engagement, reached a crossroads. Attend or abstain? His heart tugged toward reconciliation. Engagement ring on his finger. Mark felt a surreal mix of joy and dread. The proposal had been impulsive, born from the hearing's aftermath, but now reality set in. Planning a wedding amid scandal? Ethan's eyes sparkled with hope, but Mark's mind raced. What if Dad ruins this too? The inner conflict intensified. Embrace happiness or brace for more pain? Sarah's pregnancy progressed, ultrasounds revealing a girl. Mark attended appointments, guilt mingling with excitement. "She'll have 2 dads," Sarah joked lightly, but the arrangement strained. Ethan supported, yet confided in friends. "I feel like the third wheel." His jealousy festered, unspoken words building pressure. Am I enough for him? Thomas's church splintered further. He stepped down temporarily, citing personal reflection. Ellen pushed, "Go to them." He visited unannounced, finding Mark and Ethan mid-argument about the baby. "I want to help," Thomas offered awkwardly. Mark's walls rose. Now, after everything, emotions erupted. Thomas admitting bigotry rooted in ignorance. Mark hurling years of resentment. Ethan mediated. Give him a chance. But trust was fragile. A betrayal struck when a colleague leaked Mark's personnel file, exposing therapy sessions for identity issues. The media pounced. Troubled gay cop. Mark confronted Ramirez, suspecting him, but it was another, jealous of his reinstatement. The hurt cut deep. Even allies could turn. Inside, Mark despaired. Is authenticity a curse? Ethan's school reinstated him, but with conditions. No promoting lifestyle. He rebelled subtly, incorporating inclusivity lessons. Parents complained again. A heated PTA meeting ensued. Ethan stood firm. Love is love. Cheers from some, boos from others. Returning home exhausted, he snapped at Mark. Your drama overshadows mine. The fight revealed cracks. Mutual support waning under stress. Sarah went into early labor, rushing everyone to the hospital. Mark held her hand, Ethan waiting outside. The birth, a healthy girl, Emily, brought tears. Holding her, Mark's world shifted. This innocent life, dependent on his choices. Thomas arrived, summoned by Ellen, gazing at his granddaughter. She's beautiful, he murmured. A tentative bridge formed. But postpartum, Sarah confessed. I can't do this alone. Reconsider us. Mark recoiled. I'm with Ethan. Her plea ignited guilt. Had he led her on? The moral tangle deepened. Loyalty to Ethan versus duty to Emily. Ethan overheard, storming out. Choose, Mark. Alone, Ethan wrestled. Fight for love or release him. He returned hours later, ultimatum ready. All in or nothing. Thomas, witnessing the turmoil, confronted his past fully. He publicly apologized in a letter to the congregation. I was wrong about my son. Backlash hit, lost friends but gained peace. Visiting Mark, he said, I accept you.
Tears flowed, forgiveness tentative.
Mark chose Ethan, proposing co-parenting boundaries with Sarah. But the decision cost. Sarah distanced, hurt anew. Emily's custody loomed as a battle. As wedding plans advanced, threats escalated. An anonymous note, fags don't deserve happiness. Mark investigated personally, uncovering a hate group tied to his father's old allies. The confrontation. Mark arresting the leader, badge shining with purpose. Ethan's doubt persisted. Is this sustainable? Mark reassured, but inwardly feared. What more must we sacrifice? Thomas officiated a small ceremony, a redemptive act. Vows exchanged amid tears, but shadows lingered, society's judgment unyielding. Post-honeymoon, Emily's christening brought unity, yet underlying tensions simmered. Mark pondered, have we truly won? The christening gown fluttered as Emily cooed in Mark's arms, the small chapel filled with a fragile peace. Thomas sprinkled holy water, his voice steady but eyes moist. In the name of love and forgiveness, guests, family, friends, even Ramirez, applauded softly. But Mark's heart pounded. This harmony, hard won, felt precarious. Ethan's smile masked his exhaustion. The past months had drained him, constant battles eroding his spirit. Back home, Emily's cries pierced the night. Mark rocked her, thoughts swirling. Fatherhood amplified every doubt. Was bringing her into this fractured world fair? Ethan helped, but resentment bubbled. She's your blood. I'm just the add-on. Mark denied it, but the words stung, echoing his own fears of inadequacy. Sarah's visits grew contentious. She pushed for more time, hinting at legal action. Emily needs stability, she argued. Mark's lawyer advised mediation, but emotions ran high. In session, Sarah accused, you chose him over us. Mark retorted, I chose truth. The pain resurfaced, deception's long shadow. Internally, Mark agonized. Am I a good father, or a selfish one? Thomas's redemption arc faltered. Old congregants shunned him, labeling him soft on sin. He confided in Mark. I question everything now. Father-son talks deepened, unearthing mutual wounds. I feared losing you to hell, Thomas admitted. Mark replied, hell was hiding. Healing began but slowly. Ethan hit a breaking point at school. A student outed, bullied relentlessly.
Ethan intervenait, facing suspension.
I can't stay silent, he told Mark. Supportive, Mark urged, quit, start anew. But Ethan hesitated. Abandon his passion? The decision weighed heavy. Integrity versus security. A crisis peaked when Emily fell ill, hospitalized with fever. Family converged. Sarah blaming stress, Thomas praying fervently, Ethan holding Mark. In the waiting room, truth spilled. Ethan confessed jealousy. Sarah her loneliness, Thomas his regrets. Mark, center of the storm, broke. I've hurt everyone. Tears flowed, catharsis amid fear. Emily recovered, but the event forced reckonings. Mark sought therapy again, unpacking layers. Societal pressure molding him into a lie, family expectations crushing his soul. I paid dearly, he told the counselor. But was it worth it? Ethan proposed relocation to a more accepting city like San Francisco. Fresh start. Mark agreed, but uprooting meant leaving Thomas, now reliant on their bond. The goodbye dinner was tearful. You've taught me grace, Thomas said. Mark hugged him. And you resilience. Sarah relented on custody, seeing Mark's commitment. For Emily, she conceded. Co-parenting solidified, boundaries set. In their new home, Mark and Ethan rebuilt. Careers shifted, Mark to private security, Ethan to advocacy. But scars remained. Intimacy sometimes faltered under past traumas. Reflecting one evening, Mark held Ethan. We survived. Ethan nodded. But at what price? The question lingered, echoing the moral ambiguities they'd navigated, betrayals for truth, losses for love. Years later, Emily asked about her two dads. Mark explained gently, pride swelling. Yet doubts persisted. Did we model strength or chaos? In the end, their story was one of fractured hearts mended imperfectly, choices debated eternally. Was it right to prioritize personal truth over familial harmony, even if it shattered lives along the way?